eighth wonder of the world, basically a geek show. And here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 51 of Basically a Geek Show.
We are a deck of cards with one short. How apt.
Alrighty, so, we've got, some interesting news broke recently, that is of particular concern to both you and I. One of the greatest television shows of all time is returning.
Alf?
No.
Oh. Well, why the fuck are we even here?
No, the X-Files has been picked up for a 6-episode miniseries starring Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny. And as an X-Files fan such as myself who found the latest movie, I want to believe, to be disappointing.
Hey, it was better than the first movie.
It was good. A lot of people,
not saying much, but it was better than the first movie.
A lot of people trash it. You know, a lot of people trash it, but...
Have they seen the first movie with the goddamned bees?
I thought it was fine for what it was. I just didn't think what it was kind of really what was needed, so... Yeah.
What was needed, at the time, was an actual movie, not a hour and a half, 2 hour long episode, which is pretty much what we got.
Indeed.
But yeah, 6 more episodes. That is sadly all we're going to be getting, evidently.
Unless it does well.
Well, I think even that, at least not maybe like another 6 episodes next year perhaps, or something like that, because both Duchovny and Anderson have other projects that they're currently working on, and would simply not have the time to commit to a full season. So we're at the least getting the 6 episodes. There, of course, was nothing mentioned as to, you know, what the content of said episodes would be. Mm-hmm. I believe they called it like an event miniseries or some shit like that. So, God only knows. I'm hoping it will feature the gentleman who is presumably still on his roof since 2012. He is presumably a mutant who was given powers by aliens. And he said, he called in on Coast to Coast AM one night on December 21st of 2012, while I was sitting there having my solitary birthday beer. And, he's like, yeah, I'm on the roof. I'm waiting for the aliens to come take me. I'm a mutant. Gotta love that fucking show. But anyway, so, you know, maybe we'll find out, you know, why the fuck that didn't happen. We will probably discover that Mulder's sister has in fact had a transgendered operation and is working in Wall Street somewhere. And, or maybe Scully is Mulder's sister.
Ooh.
Yeah, like aliens and aging and things or something. Yeah. And they've been like doing like the incest shit or something. Fuck, I don't know. God only knows what they're going to do with it. But yeah, 6 episodes. That's what we're getting. Do you have anything in particular that you're hoping to see out of it?
Well, obviously the end of season 9, which was the last season of the show, they hinted that the Mayan apocalypse, December 21st, 2012, would be the day that the aliens enacted their big colonization plan of Earth. Now, we're obviously past that date, so that'll be interesting to see how they reference that. The big disappointment I had about I Want to Believe, the latest movie, was that they didn't even mention that. And it's like, there's this giant alien invasion that's supposedly coming and Mulder isn't doing anything.
Yeah, that if I were to criticize that movie for one thing, it seemed very detached from like the entire... It too, in its own way, seemed like kind of an episode of the movie, or an episode of the series, but it seemed like an episode from the earlier seasons, which is why I thought it was better than, you know, the first movie. Mm-hmm. Fight the Future, I think it was called?
It was, yes.
Yeah. Sega tried that. But yeah, so... that was the one thing I would say about it. It was a quote-unquote monster of the week episode kind of a thing, and it felt very detached. It didn't seem to have much of the continuity from the series in with it, which was both a good thing and a bad thing, because towards the end that show just kind of really jumped the shark, I think. It was okay. When they got rid of Mulder, I just kind of stopped watching. I didn't want to see the Terminator guy with the funky ears, Robert Patrick. I didn't want to see him. His ears are distracting. But I can't take him seriously. If they would at least let him grow his hair out or something to detract from the ears. I don't know. I'm just weird. I'll see someone on TV and it's like, I'll see one aspect of their body. It's not ugly or anything. I don't really care, but it's just distracting. And you can't really, you're too busy looking at them. It's kind of like that time I watched a porno with the chick. It's called Busty Babes or something, and the chick had this wonky nipple. One nipple was about to poke her in the eye, and the other one was pointing downward as if it were just trying to get away in shame. But yeah, anyways, I digress. So yeah, there you go. At that point in the show, I just I stopped losing interest, really. I think they did bring Mulder back, didn't they?
Yeah, he was a somewhat semi-regular during season 8, and then season 9 he was absent the entire show until the final episode.
Yeah, and that was when I just I stopped. Unless it had both Mulder and Scully, I did not watch it.
Or they were even starting to phase Scully out near the end.
And yeah, see, at that point, you don't even have a show as far as I'm concerned. TV shows have this thing that they do where, they especially do it with, youthful cast members where they grow up or whatever, and they try to start replacing cast members, and it's just always fail. I mean, look at that 70s show, Married with Children. The cast members grow up and they start writing them out, and it always ends up bad. But yeah, so original cast for GTFO, but that's what we're getting. So
Indeed. Other than that, I want to see Skinner come back. Obviously, I quite enjoyed him.
Now, the guy who played the chain-smoking man, he actually did die, didn't he?
The actor?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I don't think so, honestly, because I remember he was in Caprica, which was the Battlestar Galactica spinoff, and that wasn't too long ago. Okay. Let's see. Let's just do a quick search here.
Yeah, I never watched Caprica. I tried. I don't know. It was kind of boring.
I found it all right in some places. Other places, not so much. All right. Sarah Smoking Man. No, he's still alive.
Okay, so we need him. We need him.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they have him a fucking voice box or something. Yeah, we need him. Preferably his mouth just lined with fucking cigarettes. It'd be awesome. Just this smoke cloud. That could be the way they just obscure him. Just a fucking smoke cloud.
He does look quite a bit older, obviously. It's been 13 years since the show, but, they gotta bring him back. I mean, he is the closest that show has to, antagonist. They tried to replace him near the end, too, and it just didn't really work out.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
Go on.
So, in terms of what I want to see them address the 2012 issue. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that again, because we're past that. So is the show going to take place a couple years in the past? The alien invasion doesn't seem like an event that they can just say was resolved off screen. So,
I don't know. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I don't see them handling it really in a way. Okay, this is something that I think we both need to just accept going into this.
Yes.
There are going to be some aspects of this new X-Files that are going to disappoint us.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think a lot of it is hindsight bias with us, and a lot of you other fans of the show out there. And this is the case with a lot of these old properties that we've liked and enjoyed in the past that have been necroed in the last few years. It's never going to quite live up to what you want, I don't think, if we just set ourselves up for some disappointment going in. That's not saying I'm not excited for it, because I actually kind of am, oddly enough. But at the same time, I'm not expecting it to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we may see them blow that off if they can't think of anything. Even if they did some kind of like invasion of the body snatchers kind of a deal where the aliens did come, and they're just kind of like a they live kind of a thing, Hell, get fucking Roddy Piper in on that shit. But that could be done. It'd be kind of a cheap way out. But if they're not going to, I'm not sure how gung ho they're prepared to go with this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you think they should do with it?
I mean, it's interesting, 'cause a lot of my favorite X-Files episodes were Monster of the Week, actually. And judging from conversations I've had, I am not really alone in that. But if it's only a 6-episode miniseries, you really don't have any room for Monster of the Week in there. Like, you've got to tell a story, and you got to tell a story as precisely as you can. Honestly, I think they need to conclude the alien colonization story. That they set that up. They need to conclude it one way or another, and then if they have other stories they want to tell, bring the show back again. But I want to see that plot point wrapped up.
That would be the smart play, even if they, like you said, have it take place in 2012. My only concern with that is I don't know how many people would be interested in seeing. I guess if you took it as alternate universe, alternate history kind of a thing, that might work. But I don't think there's enough people out there whose minds are in that headspace yet.
Mm-hmm.
Where that can become a thing that's easily done and easily accepted. I mean, look at World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically outlaying an alternate history scenario, and yet everyone lost their fucking minds about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's really a thing that people are ready to get. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I just don't think they're going to do it.
Well, interestingly enough, Mitch Pileggi, who played Walter Skinner, is set to return, as is William B. Davis, who played the cigarette-smoking man. So, as of this recording, it looks like both have been asked to return, and both will be returning.
Good deal. And all will be right with the world as long as Gillian Anderson is in a short skirt.
She won't be.
Well, as long as she takes her top off. My sexuality was budding back then, okay?
Apparently, I don't know. It's really, just kind of looking around on the web, the project that David Duchovny is working on that kind of keeps this from being a full season is he's working on a show called Aquarius.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
For NBC.
Oh, that's even more horrible.
Here's the general plot. In 1967, Los Angeles Police Sergeant Sam Hodiak, played by Duchovny, is helped in a missing persons case by undercover officer Brian Schaaf, played by Gary Damon, who behaves like a hippie and fits in with the people being questioned. Unknown to them, their investigation will lead them to Charles Manson.
So it's a historical buddy cop drama.
Starring David Duchovny.
Ugh. Fuck that. We need more X-Files instead of that shit.
Yeah, David Duchovny's gonna be playing the straight-laced cop, and then you're gonna have his hippie partner. Ooh, crazy.
Hi, Jinx!
And then Charles Manson will show up, because sure.
Yeah, why the fuck not? Now, it would be cool if they're both like bumbling idiots. Kind of like kind of like the Starsky and Hutch movie. But it doesn't sound like it's really. You can't really throw Charles Manson into a feel-good comedy, I don't think. Well, I mean, I think you can. I just think no one has the balls to try it.
I don't know how you can have a buddy cop movie
without Charles Manson.
With Charles Manson, I mean,
Rush Hour 4, get on it.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh jeez. So yes, X-Files, we are in fact getting it back. The rumors are no longer rumors. This has been confirmed by Fox, and it will be something that we'll be getting. Shooting will start this year, I believe.
They said that if all goes well, they'll be able to start shooting by the summer. So yeah, they should be getting shooting soon, assuming that there aren't any major delays.
So yeah, we can probably, I guess, look for that around the holiday season, maybe, or early 2016.
Yeah.
So yeah, good shit. Now, speaking of things that really don't happen the way that they should, like this supposed alien invasion, which, I mean, I haven't seen any aliens. Wave 2 of Combiner Wars has been released in theory.
Transformers Combiner Wars, yeah, the Generations Combiner line. This has been interesting. It's Wave 2's release date has been pushed back indefinitely in the United States due to the dock workers strike that's been going on in the United States, meaning that the figures shipped from the factory in China are probably sitting at the docks. It's just that there's no one to unload them and put them onto the trucks to take them to Walmart.
Yeah. So.
Now they have been released in Canada because we don't have a dock workers strike. Canada does it right.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts on this.
Uh-huh.
See, this is what happens when the consumer gets caught up in the clusterfuckery of organized labor. There's only one solution to this, and this is a counter-strike where we go protest the protesting.
You're going to protest the protesting because you want your toys.
Yes, we want our toys.
Okay.
And the biggest evidence I can say to this is a Walmart full of movie One Pump Chump lockdown.
Yeah. Now, in Canada, they have been coming out again. It's been announced that they were spotted on shelves in Quebec. So that's exciting. Problem is that it's going to take a while for that to sort of move its way through the system, so I'm not expecting it in my neck of the woods anytime soon. All of this frustration is compounded by the fact that they really went about the case assortments in a really dumb way. Wave 1 being 4 aerial bots and a single Stunticon, meaning that if you wanted a complete Superion, you needed to give him a Decepticon foot. And meaning that we needed Wave 2 to complete both Superion and Menasor. And now Wave 2 in Canada seems to be coming out slowly because Canada is always a bit behind when it comes to wave distribution. Only this time, it's leading. It's out first, but the timetable still really hasn't changed. Whereas in the United States, the stock workers strike has held things up. So now we've got a situation where fans all over are frustratingly trying to deal with the fact that Menasor and Superion are just out of reach. And I have to think this wouldn't be so bad if Hasbro had just given us Air Raid instead of Drag Strip in Wave 1 and had just let us have Superion.
Well, and see, originally it had been thought that they did this to highlight, quote-unquote, the ability to mix and match these different units into the ability to combine, blah, blah, blah. And Hasbro, you told me this, Hasbro later came out and said, yeah, no, we kind of just said that to cover our own fuck-up.
There was they weren't exactly clear on what happened, but from what I can gather, basically it was a mistake that they never intended for drag strip to be in wave 1. That was intended to be air raid. There was a mistake somewhere on the administration side of things that led to air raid getting pushed to wave 2 and drag strip being moved up to wave 1, and then they kind of just tried to run with it as best they could.
Right. So, we got screwed once, and if you live in the US, you're getting screwed again, because no one anywhere is fucking competent. Hasbro doesn't have their shit together. This whole dock worker clusterfuck, they don't have their shit together. No one has their fucking shit together, and we're sitting here with our dicks in our hands looking at fucking One Pump Chump movie Lockdown, cramming the fucking store shelves. Thank you. Thank you, Hasbro. Thank you, dock workers. Fuck you all. Suck a nut. And I know this is very first world problems, but it's the little things in life that piss us off, isn't it? I mean,
Indeed.
It's just, when you see things that should be happening smoothly and intelligently, and they're just not, and then you just slowly become more and more aware of the idiocy that surrounds us because it keeps showing us its ass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have here.
Indeed. So, eventually you'll all, get your proper wave 2 and you'll get your Minister and Superior. It's just that there's really no timetable for when that's, going to work itself out.
And I mean, I'm sure you can get them now along like Amazon or Big Bad Toy Store, imported from either Canada or wherever. Yeah. So I mean, you'll pay a little bit more for them, but I mean, you can still get them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're willing to shell out the money, of course, which since this release has been postponed indefinitely, it may not be a bad idea to go ahead and fucking do that.
According to CBC, dock workers, administrators at ports along the U.S.'s west coast, which is where these toys are coming in, they say that, officials say that once this, strike is resolved, it'll take 3 months before all the backlog is shipped out.
So we are looking, even if this strike were to end right now, we are looking at up to 3 months before we even see our fucking toys.
And it's interesting. On February 27th, there was a tentative deal reached, but that has yet to have been, that has yet to be, finalized. So, yeah.
Incompetence abound, and we sit here, sans our toys. God damn it. Oh well, such is life, I suppose.
Indeed. So, before we started recording today, Jack, you saw, actually,
I saw something.
A trailer.
For something.
For Terminator Genisys.
That's what they call it.
The new film.
It's a film.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Terminator thing.
Uh-huh. So what did you think of the trailer?
What the fuck did I just see? I mean, it made no sense. Okay, if you've seen Terminator 1, and you've seen Terminator 2, and you somehow made it through Terminator 3, and you've seen this trailer, I couldn't tell what the actual fuck was going on. I mean, it's like, okay, it starts off reasonably enough. You're like, okay, well, the guy with the scar on his face, John Connor. All right, we get it. We're with it. We know where we're at. And he's like, oh, hey, Kyle, yo, dog, I need you to go back in time, and this will take care of this, yo. You do this, we got this thing. And Kyle's like, okay. And Kyle Reese goes back. And that's when this shit starts getting flung against the walls willy-nilly by a fucking herd of brain-addled monkeys. It's like, Okay, so evidently Kyle Reese comes back, and he has no fucking clue. It helps you, I'm sure this will help us identify ourselves with Kyle Reese, because he has no clue what the fuck is going on, and I know I sure as hell don't either. And, so he comes in, evidently Sarah Connor comes bailing in a fucking ambulance or some shit. She's like, come with me if you want to live. And there's, a T-1000 going around being all like, I'm liquid metal and dur-dur-dur-dur. And he's like, wait, what the actual fuck is going on? This is not what I signed up for. I was supposed to be off today. I wasn't even scheduled to be here. And... And so then she's all like, yeah, no, well, we have this thing and that thing, and, he's like, well, yeah, but they're sending a Terminator to stop. He's like, oh, no, we took care of that shit. Wait, we? And then you see, like, Grandpa Schwarzenegger bot, and he's all like, Schwarzenegger. I'm not even going to try a Schwarzenegger impression. So evidently there's, like, one T-800 too many, because you see there's, like, another T-800, and then the T-800 that's been with Sarah Connor, and then a T-1000, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And nothing makes any fucking sense at all. Nothing makes any fucking sense. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what did you think when you seen it?
I think it's a clusterfuck, honestly, it is a clusterfuck of continuity, is the best way to describe it.
That's putting it mildly.
I did look up basically what the basic premise is supposed to be. And from what I can tell, the past gets changed when Skynet sends a Terminator back to kill Sarah Connor when she's a kid, and that ends up with her parents being killed, so she grows up being raised by the Schwarzenegger, the old Schwarzenegger Terminator.
Oh, that's not going to make for any psychological issues at all.
And so, basically, Kyle Reese is being sent back in time, thinking he's getting set to the plot of Terminator 1.
But this isn't Terminator 1. This is Terminator Genisys.
Spelt all funky.
Terminator Genisys funky.
Which is why I suspect Matt Smith is being cast in this movie as something. We still don't know what he's playing, but...
The Doctor.
So he can show up as the Doctor and explain all of this time travel bullshit.
Yeah, that'll be like half the movie. It'll just be him being all fucking wacky in a bow tie with like fucking flowcharts and shit.
It's like... So it's all timey-wimey, you see.
And this goes back to what I was saying.
It doesn't really unravel, it's more like a rug.
Oh.
Sorry, God.
Jeez. Yeah. This goes back to what I was saying about the X-Files thing, where it's like, yeah, they can do the thing where they're back in 2012 and try to weave everything together. But I don't think it's going to go over very well. And this is why. Shit like this right here is why. It's why we can't have nice things.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go on.
Basically, Terminator Salvation bombed, is what happened.
And see, I really like that movie.
Yeah, well, you have an entire segment on the show dedicated to you liking bad movies.
No, what is objectively wrong with that movie?
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just sort of dull. Like, it was just kind of like a generic action movie. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, it just didn't strike me as being...
Dude, it had a nuke.
Notable. I don't know.
It had what's more notable than a nuclear detonation?
Not sure.
See, there you go. You don't know. You don't know. But yeah, I mean, I like Terminator Salvation.
But the point being that they had this whole plan with Salvation to kick off basically the story of the war against the machines. And because it bombed, we never got that. And so they were trying to find a way, and honestly, if they were going to start from the beginning, they should have just gone with a straight reboot. Like, just start from scratch. Like, just do a straight reboot. Instead, they're trying to reboot it, but keep it attached to the original continuity, which doesn't really work. The Terminator franchise is one of those things that needs to be killed and then brought back completely fresh in, like, 10 years.
Or just killed. I mean, it has been 10 years, hasn't it? When was Salvation was like from 2005, wasn't it?
No, 2008 around.
Oh, well, I mean, it's been a few years in any rate. This is another thing where it's kind of like, this is why sometimes these franchises should just be allowed to die. Mm-hmm. I understand it, Hollywood. I get it. You don't have anything to do. I know this. We know that you have not had an original idea in your fucking head in years. And it's not entirely you guys' fault. But at the same time, you keep repackaging and reselling us the same shit, and you don't even do anything notable with it. So if you're going to if you're going to ask us for our money to see the same things that we've seen better versions of 10, 15, 20 years ago, at least not insult our fucking intelligence and execute some semblance of goddamn competence with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, what kind of bullshit is this? They're just they're turning the Terminator franchise into this bowl of fucking spaghetti, and they're just flinging it at the wall and hoping the tangled noodles fucking stick somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing.
If you're going to remake it, and I'm sorry, this term reboot is being way overused. Half of these things are fucking remakes, not reboots.
I never understood the difference, really.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're remakes, but they don't want to, I think it's one of those cases of branding. They don't want to use the term because they think we're too stupid to realize, hey, this is just a remake. And, it's evidently working. I guess a lot of people are that stupid. I'm not surprised. But, people are going out and they're seeing this, or at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, well, we're seeing it because that's all they're giving us. And I don't know where exactly this started. I think a lot of it might have to do with Transformers, to be honest with you.
How so?
Well,
because Transformers never did a reboot.
Well, no, it didn't do a reboot, but it was a resurrection of, an 80s franchise that had not seen anything substantial done with it in quite some time. And then you have Michael Bay comes in and he makes everyone scores of motherfucking money. And, then, you start seeing all these other things. You had Starsky and Hutch, that predated Transformers as I recall, that movie. But this trend of just rebooting everything, remaking everything, whatever you wish to call it, I don't know where its, no pun intended, genesis lies.
Yeah.
But it's something that it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I don't think it's going to go anywhere until they run out of shit to remake, and then they'll remake the remakes, because then by that time the stuff they made, from 2000 to 2005, well, hell, then they can start doing that all over again. And Sony, they don't give a good goddamn. They're rebooting mid-movie.
This will be the third Spider-Man, reboot in 7 years. Just think about that.
Right. So, I mean, they don't care. They're just whatever. You got this Terminator thing, which, I mean, I get what they're trying to do with it. I guess they're trying to, in some sense, do a remake, but they want it to tie in, and they want to do something new with it. If you ask me, I believe that they're overthinking this by quite a bit. It goes back to, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. There was nothing broken about Terminator 1. That's why we all liked it. There was certainly nothing broke about Terminator 2. Again, that's why we all liked it. So, they need to just slow the fuck down and weave together something. Maybe I'm being premature here. I mean, maybe I'm just going on a tirade for nothing. But it seems like to me this is just going to be another case of very little discipline actually shown in this, and them focusing too much on what they can do and not enough on what they should be doing.
Agreed. Moving on. There's another story. This kind of going off the reservation a bit here. But a story did break as we began recording, and I figured it is worth bringing up. As we know, Michael Bay will not be directing Transformers 5. It seems as if they are trying to shake things up for the 5th Transformers movie. Paramount Pictures is negotiating with a Hollywood writer by the name of Akiva Goldsman to write Transformers 5.
Yeah, evidently looks like he is the guy who wrote A Beautiful Mind, The Da Vinci Code, I Am Legend, as well as Batman and Robin. Oh wow, they're aiming for the fucking stars here.
To be fair to Batman and Robin, the main thing that killed that was Schumacher.
I mean, I Am Legend was kind of crap.
Yeah, but A Beautiful Mind won an Oscar.
That doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything, but it shows a range of what this guy can do, is what I'm saying.
I get you. I mean, I don't know. It's just a hiring decision. It's way too early to say how this guy's experience and his mindset will. I mean, I'm looking at his repertoire here. I'm seeing 2 movies that I don't give a shit about, 1 movie that I would have if it hadn't have sucked, and then one of the worst movies ever fucking made. I'm not exactly enthused here. I'm just saying.
I don't know. I'm intrigued by it.
And he's just a writer also. He's not a director.
Well, no, but the thing is that because Bay isn't directing, I assume they're going to get someone perhaps a bit fresher to direct, someone who because they haven't been working on the franchise for 4 movies will have a less definitive personal view of what it is, and that might give the writer more influence over how things turn out. Like with Michael Bay, by the 4th Transformers movie, he had known what he wanted to do, and you weren't going to tell him otherwise. Unless they get a really big name with a really clear vision, then it might be a situation where the writer is able to sort of, point him in the, right direction.
Well, this is the blurb that follows, and I'll go ahead and read this. Taking a page from Fox's incubation of 3 Avatar sequels and what Disney is doing to revive Star Wars with sequels and spin-offs, the studio is negotiating with Akiva Goldsman to work with franchise director Michael Bay, executive producer Steven Spielberg, and producer Lorenzo de Bonaventura to organize a writer's room that will incubate ideas for a potential multi-part Transformers sequel and come up with potential spin-off films based on the billion-dollar franchise culled from the Hasbro toy line, says Deadline. The Transformers expansion signals that Paramount is serious about competing with its studio peers when it comes to broadening its big franchise properties. So now, Paramount is throwing in the ring. With this statement here actually is pretty big because Paramount's throwing their hat in the ring with Marvel.
Well, the difference is, though, that unlike Sony,
Paramount is competent.
Paramount actually has a property that they can work with here, as opposed to Sony desperately trying to turn Spider-Man into a full cinematic universe.
Yeah, I mean, you can get a cinematic universe out of Transformers. I mean, it's easy to do if you're willing to do it.
There are enough characters and stories. Like, for example, the current Transformers comic book series currently has 2 lines running. Last year it had 3 lines running, all telling 3 independent stories. So there are multiple stories that you can tell if you want to do it. So
right, yeah, it'd be very easy to do again if they're willing to do it and if they're willing to do it right. This is very interesting. A multi-part Transformers sequel. Now that I'm not too hyped about.
Well, there is room in there. Age of Extinction ended with Optimus saying he wanted to find his creators.
Right. I mean, okay. What I'm saying with that is this whole trend of like, okay, the latest Hunger Games movies, they've been splitting into two movies.
I'll tell you why this doesn't bother me like that trend does. Because like when they took the last Harry Potter movie and split into 2 movies, or they take the last Hunger Game book and they split into 2 movies, or the last Twilight book and 2 movies, the movies are based on media that's already been produced. What I mean by that is that you already have a story, and you're artificially inflating it by splitting it into 2 movies. Here, I mean, there are plenty of Transformers stories, but if the previous film series is any indication, they're going to they're going to start things from scratch, maybe borrow elements from existing stories, but they're going to start from scratch, which means that you won't be artificially inflating a story into 2 or 3 parts if you construct it to be 2 and 3 parts from the start.
Yeah, unless, of course, this thing falls flat on its ass. I mean, I don't think it will, but also what kind of, and maybe I'm reading too much into this terminology here, this labeling, but they referred to Michael Bay as franchise director.
I just think that means he was a director of previous films.
It could be, or it could mean that they've given, even though he's not specifically on the set with these movies, he is being given some kind of oversight with them, which will make some happy and send many more into a foaming at the mouth fit if that's the case.
I see this as, look, I don't think Michael Bay is going to disappear from it entirely. I think we'll see him with a producer or executive producer credit on future films. But Michael Bay has made it clear that he wants to focus on other things now. I don't think he's going to have a big hand in shaping the Transformers franchise from a story perspective. I honestly think he's done with the hands-on story stuff at this point.
That could very well be. I don't know. I'm just concerned when anytime they start doing multi-part installments with movies, I don't like it, and I'll tell you why. Because you end up, no matter what you're saying about, well, it's different if you're basing it off of a book, because then you're taking existing material and you're trying to adapt it, and sometimes that adaptation suffers because of a studio's desire to split a movie into 2 or 3 segments. And that's perfectly valid, and I agree with you 100%. My problem here is just with the concept in general, regardless of how it is applied. Because at that point, I don't like waiting 2 fucking years, sometimes longer, to find out what's, the next installment of a story. When I go to a movie, I like for it to be self-contained in terms of, okay, well, you have your beginning, your middle, your end, and then everything is tied up, and then if they choose to make a sequel, great. If they don't, then you're not left with any kind of a cliffhanger or any kind of unresolved issue if the first movie did its job correctly.
Well, again, though, that's down to how they film it. For example, Lord of the Rings. When Lord of the Rings was filming their trilogy, apparently they filmed all 3 films, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King. They filmed all 3 at once. Right. And then they just released it at year intervals.
And they're doing that with Avengers 2, aren't they?
No, Avengers 3.
Or Avengers 3. They're going to be doing that with Avengers 3, aren't they?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is the way to do it, so there isn't excessive time between films. You just film it all at once, and then you release them, like, basically at year intervals, so then, okay, you saw part 1 now, and then you only have to wait a year for the second part, and that is much less infuriating, because, a year is about as long as all the talk and discussion usually lasts. So, you see it, you talk about it, you get all hyped up, and by the time you're at maximum hyped, the second one comes out. So that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just depends on how they go about filming it.
Right, and they may not, okay. That's also depending on, can they get the actors for that long of a time to film 2 to 3 movies consecutively? And also, since they're talking about a Transformers multi-part sequel, some of the verbiage of this blurb leads me to think that they're going to perhaps start an all-new series.
That's possible. They mentioned spin-offs and that kind of stuff.
I mean, like you're going to have Transformers 1 through 4, even though the last one was kind of like a soft reboot in a way, in the sense that they dumped the major human characters and replaced them with more equally mediocre human characters. So that was kind of a wash as far as I was concerned.
Well, there's still 5. I expect basically what this to be is they're going to do 5 and 6. That's inevitable. I also think they're looking at spin-offs, kind of like, again, they mentioned Star Wars. How you're going to have Star Wars episodes 7, 8, and 9. Those are happening. But you also have, in the years in between them, other films that are spin-offs, like a Boba Fett origin, for example. So I kind of see something like that happening, where you're going to have Transformers 5, you're going to have Transformers 6, and then maybe in between 5 and 6, you get, I don't know, maybe something based on the More Than Meets the Eye comic book series. Like, I seriously doubt they'll ever do that, because the More Than Meets the Eye series I don't think would work in the style of the live action films, but that's just an example to show what they could do from a structural standpoint, where you could have other films that deviate from the main narrative. Like, I mean, if they devote they devote Transformers 5 and Transformers 6 to Optimus Prime confronting the creators of the Transformers, like they hinted at the end of 4, then that's the main series. And then in between, you could have other stories that maybe take place on Earth amongst the Autobots like Hound and Drift and Crosshairs and Bumblebee, for example.
We could end up seeing R.I. Derp, the cinematic version.
Yeah, except Bumblebee doesn't talk in the movies, so.
Well, he did.
He had this weird British voice.
Yeah, he did at the end of the first movie. He had a fucking British accent, and then he never spoke again. And I don't think they ever explained why, did they?
No. No. It was just weird. I think they wanted it, like, they wanted to keep Bumblebee mute for the kids. Like, the kids all loved Bumblebee, and like, well, they know, like, deaf and mute Bumblebee, so let's run with that. It's the same reason why he didn't talk in Transformers Prime.
Well, yeah. Transformers Prime really leaned on the movie franchise heavily to try to get its street cred. And so, I mean, there were going to be a lot of similarities there in terms of design and character base models and things like that. I don't know. I mean, this is very interesting, though. Again, what I said earlier still stands. It's still very early to ascertain any shape that things might take just because of the hiring of one individual. Mm-hmm. When we start seeing, I think the hiring of the director will be the most telling choice. When we see who that's going to be, then we can start throwing some things around and hypothesizing and,
Who directed Brokeback Mountain? Let's get him.
No. Well, let's not. Let's not do that. I mean, I know you want to see Knockout and Perceptor have their time on the screen.
Knockout and Perceptor?
Yes. Oh, come on. Perceptor? I mean, come on. Come on.
There are actual gay Transformers couple you actually could have used.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, shit.
Rewind and Chrome Dome.
Yeah, I was gonna say Chrome Down. I don't know what the fuck. Oh, Jesus. So, yeah. I don't know. It's a thing.
I can tell you who's not going to direct, and you saw a lot of this, when the films were in full swing. It's not going to be Christopher Nolan. People are like, why can't we get Christopher Nolan? Well, because to do a Transformers film, you need to rely heavily on CGI. Okay. And, well, Christopher Nolan has stated that he does not like to use CGI. He will use practical effects whenever possible. In The Dark Knight Rises, for the Bat Plane, I know it was called something else, but it was the fucking Bat Plane. when the Batplane was, flying through Gotham, they actually made a model of, like, a life-size model of that and had hoisted up on, wires, and they moved it through the city, because Christopher Nolan will not go with CGI if he doesn't have to. So Christopher Nolan is never gonna do a Transformers movie.
And you know what? That's fucking commendable, though, because there is too much CGI in movies in general. I get with Transformers you kind of have to.
With Transformers, it is inevitable, unless you just want to go straight out like Power Rangers or Godzilla style and put guys in suits with miniatures.
Well, guys, you hated Michael Bay. Enjoy it, motherfuckers. Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
I'm envisioning, like, some guy in this really boxy Optimus Prime G1 style costume in this really obvious city, like model city on a Japanese soundstage.
No, get the one dude who made himself an Optimus Prime costume out of fucking beer cans.
And like have him do like the cheesy martial arts posing. Like I don't know, that would be amazing. Like just go full on Taku with it and just do Transformers that way. Like that's, you just need CGI if you want to do live action Transformers. There's no way around it.
Fuck yes.
So, yeah, no, it's not gonna be Christopher Nolan. I don't even think it'll be anybody who's a big name, honestly. Like J.J. Abrams has got Star Wars to play with.
Yeah, Abrams has taken, I don't think Spielberg is actively directing movies anymore.
Well, and he's the executive producer on this, so I don't think he'll direct.
And Roberto Orci, he's doing Star Trek 3.
Uh-huh.
And he's a first timer too, basically. So yeah, pretty much all the big names are either it's not their thing to do. You're not going to get James Cameron to do it because it doesn't involve fucking blue cat people on space reservations.
No, he's doing Avatar.
Is he really?
What, James Cameron?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I haven't seen anything.
Well, Fox keeps talking about how they're up to Avatar 4 in terms of planning, but I don't know.
Now, has anyone told them that they need to actually film these?
I suspect that James Cameron is in his little bubble as we speak, getting footage.
I suppose.
But, so, like, it's not gonna be anybody who, in terms of directors, it's not gonna be anybody big. It'll be a no-name guy.
I suppose. But I think we've probably said all that there really is to say about that for now. There is one other thing that we did want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get a little bit potentially controversial with this one, even though it does fall under our purview. It is a video game development.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There is an MMO called Rust. Now, I have heard of it. I have never played it. I really couldn't tell you all that much about it, to be perfectly honest with you. What I can tell you is basically what I read earlier. It was on GameSpot. The developer of Rust, I believe his name was Gary Newman. Now, what we're used to with MMOs is, you go in, you create your character, to the point that the character creation ritual has become such a thing that, I've heard of people taking hours, days even, like trying to create the perfect character. There's a Japanese game, and I couldn't even tell you its name, but its character creation options are just so mind-bogglingly amazing and customizable. The degree of control that you can have when, creating your own original character to, explore whatever world that they give you to play around in. And that's really the draws of an MMO, isn't it? You create your own original character in what is hopefully this epic universe. And, depending on how far you want to take it, how deeply you want to delve, you can, give them their own backstory and this, that, and the other thing. Most people don't. Granted, most people just go in and they pew, 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 kill, kill, kill. But at least it's your fucking character. At least it's something that you made that is your own property, and that helps you get immersed in this world. Even if you're not really a role player, you still get attached to your characters, to your tunes and such. And I think, some of what what I'm about to say here is probably going to sound controversial after I say what's actually going on with this game, but I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. So, the developer of this game, Kevin Newen, has they hotfixed this into this game, mind you. So there's people this game has been out for a while, and they already have their characters, right? They've already made their characters. They've been out in the world. They've been adventuring with them, doing whatever the fuck they do in this game. And they hotfixed this into the game, and it impacted existing characters to where everyone's character was randomized. Random skin color, random facial features, random gender. And it's tied to your Steam ID.
So you can't change it.
You cannot change it. You cannot change it. And he did this, he said, in the name of racial sensitivity. That, if you're a white individual and you have to walk a mile in the shoes of an Asian female, then, maybe you will gain an appreciation for that person's perspective on life and things like that. And, of course, there's been some outcry on the Steam forums about this, and of course, a lot of just racially insensitive people just not wanting minorities in their game, period, whatever. Mm-hmm. The criticism has ranged from the vitriolic and hateful, which is just to be categorically dismissed, of course. But then you've had the people, and unfortunately, I've seen these people, like in this article that I read, they were kind of hinted at as being racially insensitive too for making these remarks very similar to what I just said. And the only thing I have to say about that is, you know what? Fuck you. Because, I'm sorry. People play these games. The whole reason these fucking games exist is for an escape from fucking reality. Mm-hmm. We don't want your social commentary in our games unless it's cleverly written, insightfully executed, and integral to the plot and enjoyable and helps immersion. We don't want it ham-fisted in, altering our existing characters that we've already taken the time to make, that we've already taken the time to explore this world with, and have you just basically write over them. Why? Mm-hmm. So that you can prove some point to yourself or get your own, chuckles and amusement out of this. Let me see if I can find this article again real quick, and while I do that, you can say what you got to about it.
The big thing about this that rubs me the wrong way is that, for a lot of people, they use the character creation screen of MMOs, or MMORPGs, basically as a means of immersion.
Right, exactly.
But it's even more than that, because a lot of people like to create themselves in the game. So from that point of view, if you are a white male, then you should be allowed to create a character of a white male. And the idea that by giving people random, characters that they're unable to change by, making someone like a black guy and be like, well, now you can experience life from the perspective of a black man, that's fundamentally flawed because this isn't an MMO based on the real world. It's a post-apocalyptic setting, if I understand it correctly.
Right.
Okay, so it's not the real world. If you want people to be more empathetic with, how a person of a minority group lives their life, then saying you've got to play as a black guy in an MMO based, after the apocalypse, that's absurd, because you're not going to get an accurate experience of what it's like to play a black guy. The premise of why they're doing this is flawed.
Right. Here's one of his blog entries. Everyone now has a pseudo-unique skin tone and face, just like in real life. You know who you are. You can't change your skin color or your face. It's actually tied to your Steam ID. He went on to say there's a lot of skin colors in the world. It's really easy to appear racially insensitive when doing this. This is compounded by the fact that everyone is really used to seeing this guy as a white guy. So when you see him as a black guy, it feels like he's just been quote-unquote blacked up. So we're spending a lot of time trying to lessen that effect. It goes on to say that so far, and this again comes from GameSpot, it says that so far the response has been mostly positive, but as has been reported, comments on the game's Steam forums some of the comments have been pretty nasty. And among these quote-unquote nasty comments was one very similar to what I said earlier about, how this impacts immersion adversely. Mm-hmm. And, even what you're saying about, well, if you are a white male in real life, you should have the ability to make yourself a white male in the game. Beyond that even, because a lot of people like to explore, they like to do kind of like what this guy is imposing on people, but they like to do that in their own mind is like a creative outlet. They like to make, explore with this white female character if they're a male, or if female a male character. If you're playing the game, you should be able to create. If you're playing an MMO that with a character creation feature and all this other shit, you should be able to make your character as you see fit. If that's not what you want, then you know what? Make a new game and have that as part of the coding from day one, and that way people who buy it know what the fuck they're signing up for. You're taking an existing game, you're patching it into this existing game when people did not fucking sign up for this. And I'm sorry, that's goddamn bullshit.
It is bullshit, and another thing, this is going to have less to do with the racial side of things, but it is another key point. It's one of the first things I heard of when I heard about this story. Anytime I've ever watched a review of an MMO, anytime an MMO or RPG, the one of the key points is character creation. I know the game Ultima 3, the RPG back in the 80s, had such an extensive character creation for its time that when people speak about that game fondly today, they say, oh yeah, the character creation was awesome. Having an extensive character creation that the player can immerse themselves in and spend a day exploring if they want is generally seen as one of the hallmarks of a well-made RPG. If you have an RPG or an MMORPG that has a very basic, very shit character creation, then you are going to be disappointed. You are going to be, it's going to be seen as a knock against that game. And so what I see here is a developer who has basically done what he's basically done to his character creation system what would get his game lambasted in any other context, but because he's framing it in the context of social justice, there are people applauding him for it. And to bring this back to an earlier show we did, this, Jack, is why I was in favor of the Gamergate hashtag, because this is the kind of biased bullshit from a media source that covers gaming, because it's clear that, there is an agenda here, and they are pushing that agenda. And the idea that you can do that in journalism, even if it is just in the realm of video games, is disturbing.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. What really irritates me with this is, if this weren't a case of an existing game having this done to it, if this were a case of, hey, we're doing this new MMO and we want to do something different with the character creation, it's going to be randomized, it's going to be unique, and what you get's going to be what you get, and it's going to assign you who you've got to play as. And if they did that and kind of spun that as like this unique new feature of it, that would be something different. And I would actually sit back and I'd say, oh, that's kind of unique, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not. He's taking an existing game that people have already spent money for. People have already bought this. They've already been playing this. And I don't know how long, again, I don't know how long it's been out, but it's been out for at least several months.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just taking away the visual likeness of the character that they've already created. Now, I know from a legalistic standpoint, they're entitled to do that. They have the legal right to do it, and this Joker evidently feels he has the moral right to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I would beg to differ on the latter front. I mean, if you're... He's just taken a lot of people's reason away for playing this game, and he doesn't seem to care. In fact, he seems to be rather smug and proud of himself for it. And to that, I think he needs to just go fuck himself.
I mean, and kind of building off of a discussion I have had elsewhere, particularly on the CCSLC forums, which is one of the primary bases of our podcasting enterprises. Look, you can be all for morally upright, justifiable, noble causes. That doesn't mean we have to think about them all the goddamn time.
Right.
That's the problem. That's why the term social justice, despite the fact that very many people even 5 years ago would have proudly proclaimed themselves as believing in social justice, no longer do, myself included, because the term has become so toxic from a lot of these idiots who feel the need to bring everything up, who feel the need to bring it up all the damn time, and their justification is, oh, it's an important issue that needs to be discussed. Yeah, it is an important issue that needs to be discussed, but guess what? I don't have to spend every waking hour of my life banging my 95 theses about why society needs to improve in some areas on the church door of the world every goddamn, moment that I'm awake. No. I want to just play a video game and just play a video game. I want to watch a sporting event and just watch a sporting event. Is it possible for LeBron James? I know this is far outside your realm of expertise, Jack, but it kind of goes along with what I'm trying to say here. But can LeBron James, can we go through a single off season of LeBron James free agency where, he looks at his options about where he's going to sign next? Can we examine that as just a basketball player testing the market, testing the waters of free agency, and not deconstruct it into, oh, white America is scared of a black man who's deciding his own future? No, it's nothing to do with that. It's people speculating about where the best basketball player in the world is going to play. That's all it fucking is, and that's all it ever really needs to be.
Right, exactly.
Okay? We don't need social justice injected into every facet of our lives. Do I believe that Western civilization, Western society has has problems pertaining to race that need to be addressed? Yes, I do.
Right.
And there are avenues, there are venues for us to have reasonable, intelligent, and mature discussions about those topics. But we don't need to bring it into fucking video games. And we don't need to bring it into sports. I mean, god damn it. In the bring it back to Transformers, okay?
Right.
When they announced Wave 3 of Combiner Wars, it was going to be the Protectobots.
Right.
Now, one of the big things about the Protectobots, right, is that it's always kind of been a joke about the fact that there are a bunch of these emergency response vehicles, but one of the limbs was a police motorcycle because it's a motorcycle. It's too small and it's just absurd. Well, Hasbro, in their recent reimagining of the Protectobots for Wave 3 of Combiner Wars, came out with said, well, we're going to keep Groove, he's the motorcycle, around, but he's going to form a chest plate, and we're going to introduce a new character named Rook, and he's going to take Groove's spot as one of the limbs. And for Rook's character mode, they said, well, we've already got a couple police cars, a fire truck, and an ambulance, so we are going to make Rook a SWAT van, like a SWAT kind of mini tank a SWAT vehicle, basically.
Right.
And, this is a couple months after the riots in Ferguson and questions about police brutality. And when they released that, you had people who gave a legitimate criticism of Rook as a figure because, Hasbro is encouraging police militarization and they are blind to the plight of the urban youth. No! Fuck off, people.
They're making a fucking toy. Come on.
They needed another Autobot, emergency vehicle to be a limb for this giant robot, and they thought, Groove wasn't suitable because he was a motorcycle, he was small. We need something big and bulky. A SWAT vehicle. We've used those before as Transformers, so yeah, let's go with that. It fits the theme. And it did. And that's the thing. Can we not even discuss the new Protectabot without this incessant need to inject quote-unquote social justice into the conversation? Are there some realms where we can put quote-unquote the discussion behind us for just a moment or two? And what's really infuriating, what really pisses me off, is when you bring up this discussion, there are people, and I've dealt with people I used to respect from an intellectual standpoint, who will assume, that you're just a closeted bigot because you said that. Fuck off, you pretentious assholes. No.
Amen, brother. Amen.
No, fuck off. Like I said, there is a time and there is a place to have a serious, mature, and in-depth discussion about race relations in society. There is a place, a proper place to have a in-depth discussion about issues such as gay rights or gender rights or issues related to gender equality. There are all valid places to have these discussions. But you know what? In our leisure time, that's not the place. Unless you can make it into a well-written narrative that will actually be enjoyable from the perspective of enjoying a piece of fiction, then I don't want I don't want an agenda shoved into my leisure time, even if it's an agenda I agree with, because that's not what I signed up for. I want to watch a basketball game that's just about LeBron James being the best basketball player in the world. I want to talk about Transformers without people accusing Hasbro of promoting police brutality because the new Protectabot is a goddamn SWAT van. These aren't unreasonable requests, and yet there are people so wrapped up in themselves who instead of defining themselves as individuals who have a set of beliefs, they instead define themselves as beliefs themselves. So they feel the need to inject it everywhere, and that just pisses me off because it ruins what should be our escape from these issues, and they make it so there is no escape. And quite frankly, you know what? I considered myself a believer in social justice for a long time. My political views evolved and changed over time, but I always considered myself a believer in the core concepts of social justice, and in many ways I still do. But if being a believer in social justice means being an asshole who feels the need to turn a post-apocalyptic MMO about beating up marauders and scavenging for survival in the wastelands like fucking Mad Max, if someone feels the need to turn that into their own little experiment on race relations, or if someone feels the need, if being a social justice believer means injecting a discussion about race into the question of where LeBron James is going to play professional basketball next, then I don't want anything to do with it, okay? That's not what I signed up for. To me, believing in social justice means being a decent fucking person. And if you're going to turn it into this militant war cry where everything has to be bent to your specific level of sensitivity, your specific desire of what things should look like, and where we always have to have this goddamn discussion where there is no leisure time, fuck right off. I'm done with all of you.
Pretty much everything. I'll have what he's having, Andre. Very well said, very eloquently said, and I completely agree. And something you said though, there at the end, when you're kind of describing this game, the tone of it, let's be honest here. This isn't a World of Warcraft. Maybe this is just a fucking publicity stunt.
If it's a publicity stunt, then I'm not entirely sure what the point is, because to me, because the main thing that he's promoting is character creation is no longer a thing. And
fuck you, we got rid of that shit.
No, that's the thing though. The whole point of a publicity stunt should be to get people to say, hey, I want to play that game. Your average gamer, I'm not even getting into the Gamergate crap of what constitutes a gamer. Again, I'm just talking about a guy who enjoys playing, or a girl who enjoys playing video games. And you tell them that there's this new MMO out, but that you can't actually create your own character. From a purely gameplay standpoint, that's going to drive people away. So if it's a publicity stunt, I don't know what he's hoping to accomplish, because nobody's going to see this and say, this is a game I need to play.
Well, and I agree with you. But I'm not saying that it wasn't. If it is a publicity stunt, which I think it still could be, that it's a very poorly conceived publicity stunt.
Unless he tries to stir up such a media storm that, then he goes back and reinstates character creation and then a bunch of people sign up for it, maybe.
And here's another thing, and I've seen a few comments, that were on this GameSpot article about this, and they were saying, well, you can't choose what your character looks like in, whatever, other games that basically aren't MMOs that don't have character creation. And at that point, you're comparing apples to oranges. Mm-hmm. RPGs, even non-MMO RPGs, character creation, which was once a novelty, then went on to become a core and integral component of what you expect when you get one of these games. And yeah, I know back in the old days of Zelda and Dragon Warrior, of course, you still don't have character creation. You get Link, but it's a fictional character that we all know and whatever. And that's one thing. Again, it goes back to what I'm saying here. You should be able to, if you're not going to give a character creation mode in your MMO, then fine, don't do it. But don't go changing your existing model with this ham-fisted, as you call it, social justice lesson. When you go and you sit down, and I'm just coming from the perspective of the average player who wants to, if you just want to get away from your day, you get off work, you just want to sit down, have a drink, and play your video game. You know what? You should be able to do that without having any kind of ethical agenda, no matter how right or just you might think that it is. And I'm not saying that racial equality is something that needs to happen. I think we've made a lot of strides in that regard. I agree with you that we do have a few things that we need to work on. But also, as you so eloquently put it, this is not the venue. But let's talk about, if we want an example of how this is done right in an effective medium and done thoughtfully and well. I mean, look at IDW with as you mentioned earlier, Chrome Dome and Rewind. Mm-hmm. That is arguably a social justice themed storyline. Mm-hmm. It's not ham-fisted. It's done thoughtfully. It's done tastefully. Mm-hmm. And it's done in a way that's hopefully, very few people would have been offended by. And that's an example of doing it right. Mm-hmm. This is an example of doing it wrong. And I think that's about really all that we can say about it.
Send your hate mail to
basically
a Geek Show at
gmail.com.
And if you want to tweet tweet at me about how much I suck, you can find me at a Geek Show on Twitter. You can also catch us on iTunes, on YouTube, on Spreaker, on Stitcher, and on basicallyasportshow.com. For Jack, this is Mike signing off, episode 51.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and fuck you, Gary Newman.